Welcome back. You're watching Your World at 10. Now, as we've been telling you all through the course of yesterday and today, Harvard Professor Nitin Nohria is the first person of Indian origin to be appointed Dean of Harvard Business School. He's also the first foreign-born person to be appointed to that position. Well, joining us to talk about Nitin Nohria's journey to the top of Harvard Business School is Ajay Piramal, the chairman of Piramal Healthcare, whose group has worked very closely with Professor Nohria, and Mahindra & Mahindra Vice Chairman and Managing Director Anand Mahindra, a 1981 alumnus of the Harvard Business School, and he too, in his participation at the many activities at Harvard, has worked very closely with Professor Nohria. So Anand Mahindra, Ajay Piramal, thank you very much for joining us on the show. Anand, I know you're in the US right now. I don't know if you're going to be at the ceremonial dinner over the next few evenings as the charge is taken over by Professor Nohria. But what do you make of the implications of this appointment? Many different people are reading into the fact that he brings a very strong, new, modern view on the social contract of business, the ethics of management to management education, something that is truly the cause or the need of the hour.
Well, I'm very glad you mentioned that because I would not want us to get carried away in the justifiable euphoria of a so-called hometown boy making it to the pinnacle here, and that's not to be sort of trivialized. But on the other hand, I think this is a very, very significant move and a message to the business community, not just in the U.S. but around the world. And it has to do with President Drew Faust of Harvard University. You have to look into her background. You have to understand the fact that she led the search committee and that she had the courage to put a person in who is the first non-white head of, arguably the world's leading business school. And she is sending a message to everybody that there is a new ethos in business that's required. And I think Nitin, with the work that he's done in this field over the past few years, has come to embody that. So I think we need to sort of pause and reflect on how this is really a shot that Harvard is hoping will be heard around the world.
Mr. Mahindra, what do you think the relevance of this is going to be in the way it shapes management education over the course of the next 10, 15, 20 years? The thought that Nitin Nohria and some of his colleagues like Rakesh Khurana actually represent the fact that he was amongst the first few to recognize the need for a sort of an integrity oath for management students. And he has since then been talking about this, the desire to bring back integrity into business. What implications is it going to have? What do you expect it will help instill in the students that study at Harvard under his reign, so to speak?
You know, what's interesting is, without trying to sound too melodramatic about this, there is, interestingly, I just spoke to Nitin about 10 minutes ago.
Okay.
And I was telling him, not so much in jest, but that his job was sort of Obama-esque, if you will. A microcosm of what happened with President Obama. Obama's election signaled a shift in values, a shift back to the common people, to people who wanted change and who wanted growth to be inclusive. In a sense, what the signal is here with Nitin is that the time really is now for business to regain the trust that it's lost. And let's be honest, not just in the U.S., but all around the world. And we in India have had our share of problems as well, where the business community has needed to rebuild trust. So this is a move filled with gravitas. Now, like Obama, he's going to have his job cut out for him because he's going to face conservative reactions. He's going to face a group of people who might be somewhat dismayed that a crown jewel of American education has seemingly passed, the reins have passed to.
I think we're having trouble with that line. While we re-establish contact, let me now go across to Ajay Piramal, who's amongst the few business leaders in India who has actually worked very closely with Professor Nohria over the course of the past many years. Mr. Piramal, what do you make of this, the position that Professor Nohria will now take on, and what he will be able to impart to the value system at HBS and to management education across the world based on your experiences of having worked with him?
I have the good fortune of having worked with Professor Nohria for the last 10 years, and we are in almost daily touch, if I may say. And we've had several discussions on what's happening in the world around us, especially in the last 2 or 3 years. And I think Nitin has a very strong point of view. One is he still believes that business can make a lot of difference and that he is a capitalist in that sense. but he also believes that business can make a difference not only to its shareholders but to society as well. And I think as the dean of the leading school in the world, if he can influence young people to see that business is in the interest of all concerned, I think that will be a big difference. And I see that happening with him.
Mr. Piramal, since you work so closely with him, can you share with us some insight in his working style? You told me that he has served on the board of Piramal Enterprises, the group holding company. I was going through your group website. I noticed that one of your medical products, or the models that you're working on, eSwasthya, has been pioneered by Professor Noria. Give us a sense of what he brings both to business as a board member as well as to Indian business, his view of the inside from the outside.
So, first of all, I think he's truly a visionary leader. He can see things far ahead of time, but he's not a very complicated person, not too many charts, very action-oriented, and I would say very simple in thinking, very humble, and he's a great human being. And he's so conscious about what he needs to do for society that you talk about eSwasthya, which is really an initiative to reach healthcare to the last individual in the villages. And I know that how much time he's spent. He's gone and visited them in Rajasthan in the heat of summer. And he's done several other initiatives with us. So he talks about, so for him, youth and leadership is another very important thing. So we have the Piramal Fellowship, which he has pioneered. And we have a Piramal Prize for young people, again, which he is very, very interested in.
All right, Mr. Mahendra, students of HPS typically make up the talent pool that both you and Mr. Piramal would ideally be hiring from. What would you like to see in terms of the changes over the course of the next 10 years, and Harvard does tend to set the lead, when it comes to some of these changes, that using Professor Noria is uniquely positioned to impart to HPS, and you would like to see as a recruiter over the next 10 years in terms of the kind of conditioning that students come out with?
Well, Harvard has a very simple mission statement, and that is that they want to build leaders, world leaders, at the business school. And that I hope Nitin will never lose sight of, and I doubt he would. We've just spoken, I don't know where you lost me when we lost connection, but we were talking about integrity and ethics and a new ethos in business.
Right.
And I believe he's uniquely positioned to bring that in, and so in a sense, he's been elected with that mandate, and he's going to have to deliver on that. He will have to go beyond the mere recital of an oath, which is pioneering, but he's now going to have to weave that into the genome sequence, if you will, of all the students who come in there. But I think the final thing which he's already articulated, which was rather bold of him, was to say that he wants to move beyond the case study method alone. And there have been a lot of critics about Harvard that despite the very valuable benefits of the case study, was Harvard too dependent on it? So I think in a sense he's already come in and in his first few interviews talked about his willingness to be a little more open and exploratory about new methods of learning. He's referred to immersion learning, he's referred to stints overseas. And I think in a sense, although that's not new, a lot of colleges have been doing it. As you said, Harvard is the leader, and if Harvard does start following those practices, then there will be a major change in the way management education is conducted.
And final word to you, Mr. Piramal, what would you like to see imparted to students that make up your talent pool of recruitment for the course of the next 10, 15 years that you think Professor Noria will be uniquely positioned to bring?
One of the big things about Professor Noria is that his love for students and his love for teaching. I think he's going to bring that in the center of the school more than anything else. And Anand talked about the new ways of bringing education. I think Nitin is very passionate about that. But what I would really like from leaders of Harvard is a more integrated, complete leader who thinks just beyond more than what is in it for me. I think one of the things I find in the last few years is that a lot of students come out looking at what is best for themselves. But I think Nitin, I hope, will bring this into the students, that it is more than them, that they have a bigger role to play than just serving themselves. And I'm sure that Nitin would do that.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, thank you very much. I think that's probably the first reason for why we need to applaud this appointment. Second, of course, being the fact that he is the first foreign-born dean of HPS. And lastly, not the least, that he is of Indian origin. Anand Mahindra, Ajay Piramal, thank you very much for joining us on Your World at 10. With that